You're watching Newsfeed AM. Let's get into this conversation now. Businesswoman Magda Wierzycka was instrumental in the Gupta leaks and is now living abroad with her family. Wierzycka fled to the Maldives with her family back in April of 2017. She was fearing for her life and safety, of course, for the involvement in the Gupta leaks emails. Now, she joins us from London this morning. Magda, good morning to you. So good to talk to you. Can I start off this conversation with an inquiry about whether you have been away since the release of the so-called Gupta emails, and I mean publicly so through the media?
No. I mean, I have not left South Africa, so let's just clarify that. I set up a business in London. I spend my time half in South Africa, half in London these days. But certainly when I'm in South Africa, I still have security and protection. So since 2017, I have had bodyguards, I have a security team. I've become less concerned since the Zondo Commission, simply because, so much more has come to the fore than what was contained in Gupta leaks.
Yeah.
But certainly, those initial couple of years were very scary indeed. I was placed under illegal surveillance, state surveillance. My phones were tapped. So there were some tangible reasons why, I was concerned.
Yeah. Scary time indeed. Let's talk about the book. The title, Magda, My Journey. That book only became available in bookstores yesterday, and incidentally, or obviously, I have not gotten a chance to read your book, Magda, but in short summary, what do you want South Africans to take away from this book?
I wrote the book, and it is a book based on my life, obviously, starting in Poland, communist Poland, fall of the communist regime, refugee status when we left Poland. I think, again, that's very topical to what is happening in South Africa right now, and the talk about refugees, so that, provides hopefully some insight. And then effectively my career, and woven into it are my life lessons. And, I was hoping to speak to three audiences, women, and in particular young women who are embarking on their careers. And, there are so many things that I wish I had known, and the way I would have behaved at 25 that I know now. So I'm hoping to provide this toolkit to young women. Secondly, what I want to highlight to men, and hopefully they're open-minded to this, is that there are differences between men and women, and that men need to recognize those differences in the workplace and potentially kind of shift their behavior towards women. And, it's not about misogyny necessarily, but it is about the differences. And then the third one is budding entrepreneurs. We need entrepreneurship in South Africa. I have lived through starting, 6 companies. I can tell you it's damn hard, but we do need people to know what it takes, and we do need entrepreneurs. So those are the main lessons. I mean, obviously, in terms of my career, there's the work side, which then led me to the activist side, and really it was activism for South Africa, and finally to my involvement in Gupta leaks.
Yeah. All right, so I'm glad you've set that out, because it's not just a book that is specific to the so-called state capture period. This is about your life journey. Let's talk, though, because this is the element that South Africans are clearly going to be interested in. How did you come to be in possession of the so-called Gupta leaks? These were the Gupta emails.
So I was approached by one of the independent newspaper groups who were approached by a whistleblower and his lawyer, and he was in possession of those Gupta leaks, and he needed money to leave South Africa because obviously he was concerned about his life. And the newspaper group approached me in order to fund his safe passage out of South Africa. Now, I paid his lawyer for legal privilege, because I never wanted my involvement to be known. He has subsequently broken privilege and has let in a book let the public know about my involvement. So I thought I might as well write, my parts of the story.
Ouch.
But,
are you taking any action against him? I'm sorry to.
I took legal advice. I took legal advice, and I was told, it will be a hard case to fight.
Okay.
But it is what it is. It's not going to change what has happened. So anyway, I did pay for the safe passage of the whistleblower out of South Africa. And then, within a couple of weeks, I was in possession of these emails. I didn't know what to do with them. And I wasn't actually going to do anything with them necessarily. The newspaper group had a plan to publish the articles over a long period of time, releasing one article at a time.
Yeah.
From Brussels, by the way. They were planning to set up a central control in Brussels. I looked at those emails, and I did know, and I did tell them that these emails have very serious implications, legal implications, South African political implications, that it's not as simple as just articles. But anyway, a couple of weeks later, I received a phone call from a very senior person who said to me, Magda, there are rumors around Johannesburg that there is this trove of emails floating around. And obviously, I knew who was in possession of these emails at that time. It was a small group of people. I took very senior legal advice, and I was told to leave the country immediately because the advice was that, it's likely that Guptas will know about this within a couple of days and about my involvement.
Yeah.
So I was advised to literally fly my family out of the country the same day or next day, which I did, and put protection in place for them. And I flew to London, locked myself, and I was advised to democratize the data as quickly as possible. And it wasn't just by them. I saw the Panama Papers lawyers in Sweden who advised me the same. I saw lawyers who represent whistleblowers in Paris who advised me the same. So, locked myself up in a hotel room, went through all the emails, organized them into storylines. Obviously, there was a lot of rubbish in those emails. There were lots of them, 200,000, or over 200,000. I organized them into meaningful folders, storylines, Transnet, Escoms, etc. Made copies, multiple copies, and sent them in anonymously to everyone I thought was in a position of power in South Africa. Heads of trade unions, political figures, literally anyone that I could think of. I did not distribute it to media channels. I didn't think it was appropriate, but I did send it to a lot of people. And that was the beginning of that.
Wow. I'm going to ask you two questions in one because of the time constraints, Magda. I could have continued this conversation. First question, do you think that there will ever be a safe time for the originator of these emails to reveal themselves, the very person that gave you the information? That's question one. Question two, as you say, once you became aware of this and once you had organized these emails into a storyline, you then gave them to trade unions, you gave it to political parties, and you gave it to cabinet ministers. Was that a wise move, given that some of the ministers clearly became involved in this dirty Gupta, what do you call it, dirty state capture period that captivated South Africa?
So, I think to your first question, I think that the whistleblower, given how much more has come out, and given that the Gupta leaks, yes, they were the beginning, but look at Zondo Commission. We know so much more. We know so many more names. That I don't think that the whistleblower would be in particular danger. But having said, because danger would be revenge. That's the only danger he would be in, or she, for that matter. But I don't think that the person wants the identity to be known. And for a variety of reasons. So that identity, in all probability, will not be known at any time. And then, in terms of the ministers and distribution, because it wasn't just ministers. Obviously, I distributed the emails to people who are not implicated in those emails.
Okay, okay.
I excluded those guys and ladies.
All right. And are you at liberty at all to tell us some of the names of the people that you released this information to, or is that something that people will just have to find as they read your book?
I haven't released the names in the book. You know, the one thing about making those copies and randomly putting them in envelopes and sending them to various addresses and headquarters is that I actually don't know how many people opened those envelopes, if that makes sense. Some did, clearly. But I think, you know, it was, look, I sent about 30 copies. And again, I wouldn't want to point any fingers at anybody. I think it's kind of almost irrelevant to the story. I think what was more relevant is that within that grouping, and it was really 30 envelopes. Trust me, I was stuffing them, thinking about should I be leaving fingerprints on disk drives. You know, I think it was more relevant that the emails found their way quickly into the public domain, that by democratizing it, actually lives were protected. No one was then at risk because everyone had access to these emails.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it was the first time that the Gupta name really gained headlines and people became aware of how serious state capture has become.
Final question to you, Magda, and it's something that perhaps is far removed from the Gupta leaks, because this is a book about your life's journey. You do mention you are a Polish national who came to South Africa at a very young age. I'm keen to know your views about what's going on in the neighboring country that is Ukraine. Of course, the general view is that Russia is the aggressor here. What's your view about this whole situation that's taking place in Eastern Europe?
Look, I mean, you know, I am, first of all, you know, South Africa adopted me at the age of 12, so I'm predominantly a South African. But obviously I've got this insight, you know, kind of interest in Eastern Europe. And undoubtedly, look, Putin is the aggressor. And, you know, there are any number of explanations, but I think, you know, the most important one is that he wants to leave a mark on history. He wants to restore Russia to a greater economic power than it is, and it has become, which is, you know, not that significant. He thought that occupation of Ukraine will be a very easy way. Ukraine is, you know, full of resources, agricultural products. He thought it was going to be over in 2 weeks. He's expanded the territory of Russia, and, you know, has left a mark on history in among, you know, all the great leaders of Russia like Stalin. But at least he goes down in history books as a hero. Magda, and I don't think that is happening.
Magda Wierzycka, thank you so much for making the time to talk to us and just share at least the preview of what your book is about. It is titled Magda, My Journey, and you can go out to the bookstores to get it for